Hi, my name is Bob Roelofs. I'm a veteran from the United States Army. I enlisted in 1978 until 1981. My date of birth is 10/11/58, and I live here in Benzie County.
Where were you born?
I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, October 11th, 1958. We lived at that time in Jenison, which is about 7 to 10 miles west of Grand Rapids.
Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My mom and dad, Gene and Estelle Roelofs. My dad had been a construction worker builder for the most part of his life. My mom was a homemaker. I have 4 brothers. I'm the second oldest of 5.
What were your parents or siblings' feelings about you joining the service?
Actually, mom and dad were fully supportive. My dad's an Army veteran from the Korean War era. Did not go to Korea, but was stationed in Germany for some time. Because there was 5 of us at home, Mom was glad that one of them was leaving. So, other than that, they were very, very supportive.
Was your dad your inspiration for joining the Army?
Absolutely. Plus, in 1978, there wasn't a whole lot going on. Interest rates were huge. I'm not a college kind of guy, so I thought it would benefit me greatly.
What primary and secondary schools or college did you attend?
I attended NMC just a little bit for some firefighter training. Other than that, United States Army, and I've been pretty much self-employed my whole life.
Can you tell us about when you went into the military? You said you enlisted. What really drove you to make that choice other than the career choices I had?
Primarily the lack of decent work in this area back in 78. Graduated high school in 1976. So a year and a half later, still really nothing going on, no solid, anything that would drive me to go long term. So a couple of buddies of mine, all 3 of us decided, let's go in the Army. So we did, and I'm certainly very, very happy I did.
When you left to serve, were you sad to leave your family behind or your friends?
Yes and no. I was happy that I had enlisted, and at that time, military was my life. I made the best of it, but it's also always hard leaving, especially for an extended period of time. For when I went to Germany, I was gone for a year and a half, so that made it kind of tough, but once I got settled down, I had a great time.
What's your most vivid memory of your time training or in school? What was the best part or the worst part?
For me, I took training and education serious, not like some others. So I always trained hard. I enjoyed especially range time, firearms, hand grenades, those kind of activities. I like to be on top of the class and not in the bottom of the class, so I strive to do the best that I could do.
While you were in training, was there an instructor that really stuck out to you, or
Well,
was a role model?
The instructors always stick out because they're very, very close to your face many times, but if you stay out of trouble, you stay out of sight. So I was one of those guys that did the best I could, and usually was real close to the top of the class.
Did you receive any specialized training, or so what?
Not really. I was hoping to be in the military police. That wasn't able to come to fruition, so I was an Army maintenance management specialist, which is basically a clerk in a motor pool, so a parts clerk for whatever. It could be aircraft, could be tracked, could be wheeled vehicles. And for me, when I got to Germany, I was finally able to use that education because my first duty station didn't have a place for me, so I was there for a year. Not necessarily bouncing around, but shortly after I got to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, they needed a mail clerk, which doesn't sound like much to most folks. But we took care of about 650 residents, and it was a full-time, everyday job. So I made the best of it. Took a very, very poor conditioned mailroom and brought it up to 100% rating. As well, when I got to Germany, as an Army maintenance management specialist, I was able to take a totally defunct motor pool parts room and turned it into one of the best on the base.
Was going to Germany your first time overseas, and how was it different from here?
So yes, Germany is a neat place. Of course, my dad had been stationed there in the early 50s. My parents and another couple had visited England and Europe in 1976 and met some great friends. They had came to the U.S. as well, so I got to meet them more than once. And actually, while I was in Germany, we went to England and stayed with those folks for a little bit. So German culture is quite a bit different from the U.S. There's still a little bit, 35, 40 years ago, they were still a little bit angry with what happened with the U.S. and Germany during World War II, but I hope they've gotten over that now.
What was it like leaving basic? Like, how was the transition?
Basic training was 7 weeks of very, very hard work with all kinds of different people. Not like around where we live, where you only have interact with a certain group of folks. This was every race, every nationality, every religion, and every color. And I thought that was absolutely tremendous part of the education, learning other people's culture, habits, how they live. Transitioning into the next level after basic training was like going out for the weekend to a spa or something. It was not as much hands-on visually. Go to training, do your work. It was self-paced, so I wasn't there as long as some of the guys because I kind of whipped right through it.
Did you receive any promotions while in the military? If so, what were they?
So I enlisted as a E2, which is one step above a base private, and that happened because I had a couple other guys that enlisted the same time I did, so we went in on a buddy system. So I was able to achieve one rank higher. Within 9 months, I achieved E3 PFC, and 15 months Specialist E4, and that's as high as that timing would allow me to go. I was promotable to sergeant at my time of discharge.
What was the hardest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to?
Getting someplace new and knowing absolutely no one.
And what was the worst?
Going someplace new and knowing absolutely no one.
What were all the places that you served?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina, Fort Lee, Virginia, Fort Sheridan, Illinois, and McCully Barracks, Wackernheim, Germany.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends while in the military?
I wrote lots and lots of letters. I got more mail from home than most guys did, so I was constantly writing letters back home.
Did it help transitioning into the military, receiving and writing those letters?
Well, there's something about basic training. If you get a lot of mail, that means people like to be know where you're at and what you're up to, which means some of the other guys don't get so much mail, so you get penalized for getting a lot of mail.
What did you do for recreation or when you were off duty?
Oh, most posts, most companies, most battalions all have recreation, touch football, softball, so a lot of interaction, especially with softball at Fort Sheridan, and then not so much in Germany. That was a lot of work every day, and then call it a night. Go to mess hall for dinner, and sometimes out to the club, but not too much activity.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
Nothing that I could really talk about.
Was there anything you did as good luck or something that happened in the Army that was like kind of routine that people would say?
I always strive to be the best I could every day. So when I rolled out in the morning, I looked as professional as I did the day before, and I'd maintain that appearance every day.
Did that strive to be the best, did that make you a favorite among your instructors or your peers?
Absolutely.
How did that show throughout your experience in the military?
So the military offers in NCO capacities, non-commissioned officers, starting with E4, you get a EER, Enlisted Evaluation Report. That's 1 through 125 points. The first one I achieved a 124.5, and the second one I achieved a 125, which as far as I'm concerned, that's pretty close to perfect.
What was the best part of your service experience?
Camaraderie. The guys I met, the people I met, the guys and gals, was absolutely tremendous. Unfortunately, I don't talk to hardly any of them. Everybody just kind of goes their own way. Every once in a while, I can bump into somebody. Recently, I bumped into one of the drill sergeants from Fort Jackson, South Carolina. When I enlisted, he was not my company's drill sergeant, but I saw him every day because they were right across the pod from us. He said that was the first time he had ever met anybody that was within his company area since he'd been a drill sergeant, and that was 40 years later.
Would there be anything you would change about your military experience?
Had I had further education as a civilian, I probably would have went in as an officer. So, and more than likely, I would have chosen the military as a career and been retired military.
So you really enjoyed your military experience?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I lived it. I was good at it. But an injury when I was in Germany and a surgery following that up 2 months before I was due to ETS to separate was probably the decision maker, because I was promotable to sergeant. If I had reenlisted, I was reenlisting with a change in my MOS, method of study, and going to drill sergeant school at Fort Carson, Colorado. That didn't happen, primarily because of the knee injury, so I chose to exit the military.
Do you remember the day you ended your service? Where were you when you ended your service?
Because I had some leave time left, I actually didn't end my service until I got home. But I left Germany on the 16th of December, 1980. Flew into Fort Dix, New Jersey. From there, flew to Detroit. Traverse City Airport was snowed in, so I spent the night in Detroit and came to Traverse City the next morning.
when you returned home, how were you received by your family and your community?
Well, like I said, we're 4 or 5 days before Christmas, a lot of snow, and it was time to start moving snow, plowing and shoveling, and find a job. I was home 5 days when I met a girl, and we got married a couple of years later, and we've been married 39 years.
Would you say that the timing of the end of your military service, would you say was fate because you met your wife?
More than likely, yeah, it was. Going out to a club one night, and some other friends were there, one of my brothers, and some friends that he had went to school with, and this gal happened to be a part of that group, so.
How did you readjust to civilian life? I'm thinking you worked, what job did you go into after?
So, coming out of the military, there's not a lot, well, there's some jobs that coordinate between military life and civilian life. And I attempted to pursue that type of aspect as far as working for a city garage or that type of industry as far as parts and vehicle maintenance and repair. There wasn't a whole lot going on in 1981 again, so I took a couple jobs locally. First one was at a car dealership in Frankfort, Michigan, selling cars, and I moved from there to some construction opportunities, which felt pretty good. So by the time the middle 80s rolled around, I decided to be self-employed and have been ever since.
How did your service change you as a person?
I believe a change of direction, responsibility, and discipline, which unfortunately there's a lot lacking right now. Military makes you grow up whether you want to or not. And you learn how to follow orders and work as a team. And a lot of that, I believe, is lost today.
Do you think that this generation could benefit from some of the experiences or the lifestyle that you had growing up? Or like, how do you think this generation is lacking in that way? And what would we need to do to change it?
Not sure if you want me to answer that one, but yes, I think today there's a little lack of discipline, and I think a good way to change it is upon graduation from high school, within the first couple of months, any student that is physically able to, I think, should be joining the military for a 2-year period of time. Men, women, doesn't make a difference. There's a place for everybody, and I think that would help society grow up a little bit and give some of these younger folks an idea of what they want to do. And because that first couple of years they're stumbling around and not sure what they want to do in college and back and forth, while 2 years in the military would be very refreshing.
Did your service, earlier you talked about how when you went into the military there were a lot of different people compared to around here. How did that affect the way that you relate to others?
You learn how to try to learn about people without judgment, and I feel very fortunate that I'm capable of doing that. And like I said, just about every race, every color, every creed, every religion, you didn't judge people. You were all there together to do basically the same agenda by the end of the day. So you had to learn how to get along.
How did your military experience carry on to now? Like, do you still hold a lot of those aspects and a lot of those skills in your daily life?
Being self-employed, it's a little bit different because I have to worry about me. And sometimes at the end of the day, I don't like the guy that I'm working for. So that kind of can be a strain sometimes. And it took a little bit to learn how to be able to do that. The military makes you disciplined, and that makes a big difference. If anybody ever out there wants to listen to a good presentation. It's called Make Your Bed Every Day. It'll change your way of thinking, and it could change your life.
What are some life lessons you learned from your military service that you passed down to your family members?
Respect is the biggest one. Learn how to get along with people that you're not familiar with. Everybody needs a chance, so, that's the way. Give somebody an opportunity to help make up your mind.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and military in general?
War's not fun. I'm a non-combat veteran, which means there was no sustainable combat while I served. There were men and women from the armed forces that did die during my time, but it's called a non-combat area, 1975 to 1990. So that's a little bit different, but if you go back and look at the history books, there was quite a bit of activity going around in the world between 1975 and 1990. But some of those folks aren't recognized when it comes to military benefits and disabilities. So I brought a lot of education home for me on how to work with different people of all sorts, all kinds, all ages, and I usually thrive to be older than what I was.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view/hear this interview?
Don't be afraid to reach out and try something different. I'm not one that's going to jump out of an airplane with a parachute. Never did, never want to. But there's plenty of other avenues that I would never have gone down had I not enlisted in the Army.
You carried a lot of your experience in the military, and you're very involved with the community now. Could you tell me a little bit about your involvement with the Veterans Affairs Office here in Benzie?
Sure. Shortly after I came home, I stopped at the Benzie County Veterans Affairs Office, which at that point in time was in the basement of the government center, and it was only open for a couple hours on a Tuesday. So 30 years later, I was approached by the Benzie County Commissioner about helping in the Benzie County Veterans Affairs Office. So I did, and we have done great things since then. Benzie County now has a part-time Veterans Affairs provider. She works 3.5 days a week in an office that's upstairs and well furnished. With her, we are doing great things for the veterans in Benzie County.
Yeah, recently there was a memorial installed. Could you tell me about the process that went through into providing that?
So Benzie County Veterans Memorial was a volunteer effort by the Veterans Affairs Committee, which I am on, and some years ago we decided we needed to reach out and do something better for all the veterans in the county. Our first venture was talking with the Grand Traverse Band Ottawa Chippewa Indians, and we applied for a 2% grant award, and we received some help of just over $20,000. And then another 1.5 years or so later, we were at phase 2, and I had written another grant request, and that one came in at about $50,000. So with those monies, we have provided a gorgeous venue for the veterans of the area, not just Benzie County, but all around the area. We're very proud of it. Our team worked very, very hard with support from the Benzie County officials. If you're ever in Benzonia, Michigan, please stop and see it.
Has your involvement with the Veterans Affairs Office introduced you to more veterans in the area? and how has been your experience meeting other people who have been in the military?
So there's a couple answers to that. I am also involved very heavily with the disabled American veterans because of my injury. Like I said, it's a non-combat injury, but it's still considered a compensatable injury. The DAV is the agency that supported me in my claim for benefits to the VA, and since then I have become heavily involved with that organization as well, which also coordinates with the rest of the service organizations, American Legion, VFW, Wounded Warrior, you name it. We all work together. So at this point in time, I am the commander of the Grand Traverse Bay Area Disabled American Veterans. I sit on the board of directors for the Disabled American Veterans Department of Michigan. We do great things for veterans in this area. That group covers a 5-county area. So not only Benzie County, but Grand Traverse, Leola, Wexford. We step into Manistee once in a while. They have an office down there, but we try to help them out as well. But, you know, we're helping people every day.
What are some ways that you help disabled veterans?
Well, it just so happens that today I've been helping a homeless gentleman trying to get his feet on the ground, and he is headed to a homeless shelter south of Saginaw probably tomorrow. So I met with him at a local gas station today to give him money to get down to where he needed to be.
Is there, let me go a little bit longer. Did you receive a lot of medals or honors from your service?
So during peacetime and quiet time, there's not a whole lot. I was proud to say that I received Army Commendation Medal for my work at Fort Sheridan. And I also received a Army Commendation Medal for my work at McCully Barracks in Germany. Both of those awards were presented to me by the same colonel at McCully Barracks, and he said that's the first time in his career he's ever given someone the same medal within 1 year time.
Did those medals make you feel special in your service? Did it make you strive for to be even better than you were?
And I do, and I still try to do that every day. It's important, I think, to look back, and somebody challenged me once about a scoring system, and it's relevant. If you get out there and do the work and people notice, then it's appropriate to reward them for that those achievements.
Is there anything else that you would like to talk about that we have not covered yet?
No, I'll just reiterate. I think the youth of today, there's a lot of things going on in the military that you don't have to fight for to be in the military. So there's a lot of back scene stuff, and a lot of places that young folks can learn and get paid to learn, and it's beneficial down the road.
Out of your entire experience in the military, what is your biggest memory or your most vivid memory while you were in the service?
So I loved being in the honor guard, which normally would be in parades and activities like that, and being stationed at Fort Sheridan, which is just north of Chicago. We were constantly representing Fort Sheridan during parade activities, so that's the American flag, the state flag, and 2 rifle bearers. 90% of the time I was a rifle bearer. The Armed Forces Day Ball takes place on the 3rd Friday or Saturday, I believe, in May. A couple of us were requested to be on the Armed Forces Honor Guard, which is a soldier from every branch of service, and 2 rifle bearers. I was a rifle bearer. and one of the other, Sergeant Valentine, was one of the flag guys. I was not of rank that would allow me to go to the Armed Forces Ball because you had to be a staff sergeant. Our post commander stepped out of probably regulations and made me a staff sergeant for a day so I could attend that ceremony on behalf. And it was probably one of the proudest moments I had.
What inspired you to join the Honor Guard?
Sense of pride. Along with the Honor Guard also came some activity with the Barrel Detachment, which is for then veterans or active duty men or women that have died during service and or after would get an honor guard, a burial honor guard to perform taps and fold the flag. With that, I traveled approximately 5 states around the Chicago area, so Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Iowa once in a while. Very moving times and very, very proud times.
You mentioned becoming a staff sergeant for a day to attend that ball. Can you tell me more about what occurred there or the events that happened while you were there?
Armed Forces Day is a lot of senior Armed Forces officials from that area. This one in Chicago. It's a great celebration of recognizing active duty Armed Forces people. So it's a very big deal, not so much in northern Michigan, but back then around other states as well. Very sought of as far as for senior officers to be at. It's a big party.
Is there anything you've always wanted to share about your service or your veteran experience that you never have?
I don't know. I don't think so. Still to this day, I communicate with folks, a lot of different people, and I always try to find a common thread. So when I was in Germany, had knee surgery, a couple of days after surgery, I was coming back from the nurse's station, and there was 2 guys in a room next to us. So I went in and talked to them. One of them was still napping from being sedated from surgery that night. It turns out they were on a motorcycle and got hit by a car. The one gentleman I was talking to, when I asked him where he was from, he said, someplace in northern Michigan. I'm like, well, give me a try. So he ended up being from Traverse City, and at the same time that we were in the hospital, which was that was in October, my brother was dating his sister.
What would you like people to know or remember from your story?
That it's okay to take a chance once in a while. It's okay to step out of the box. If you find something that you want, keep going forward and try to get it.
What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
They don't realize the commitment it takes to be away from family and friends, to possibly have to put your life on the line, to protect others as well as yourself. So, they're different kind of people, different kind of mindset, but they're the same as you and me.
Do you have any questions for me?
So, anybody in your family veterans?
Only great-grandparents.
So, World War I, II?
And my great-grandfather on my father's side, he was in the Korean War.
Okay. No, that's all. I think you did a great job.
Thank you. I'm hoping that was long enough. Hold on. Let me ask.